Design Notes is a show from Google Design about creative work and what it teaches us. I'm your host, Liam Spradlin. Each episode, we talk with people from unique creative fields to discover what inspires and unites us in our practice.
Product design is very difficult, and it is a hard thing to learn because you can't learn it unless you design a product from scratch, launch that product, and then ideally try to change it and make it better. So that's like trying to get good at playing the guitar by playing one C chord a month. It just takes for freaking ever to get good.
That was Koczon, partner at New York-based engineering and design studio Fictive Kin. The studio has worked on everything from the redesign of Tavi Gevinson's Rookie magazine to Brooklyn Beta, a conference that, according to Fictive Kin, brought together some of the nicest and most talented designers and developers in the world. In the interview, we explore what it means to own your content online, how designers can make products that foster genuine human connections, and the opportunity we have to change the world by focusing on the impact of our work. Let's get started. Cameron, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So to get started, I want to know about your journey. So what do you do now, and what was it like to get there?
I run an agency in Brooklyn called Fictive Kin. There's 25 of us. The journey started out in California. I'm from San Diego. After college, I went to business school. I went straight through to business school. Going to business school straight through is a little bit weird because you're 21 and the average age is more like 28, 30. And if you, how old are you?
27.
27, okay. You ever hung out with like a 21-year-old as a 27-year-old? It's like terrible. So I was the annoying one, and it was lucky to me that my college roommate also went to graduate school at the same time, but he went for engineering. And he worked on the touchscreen on the first iPhone, very cool guy. Anyhow, because of that, I ended up hanging out with all engineers instead of business people. I have a lot of MBA friends, but mostly I was hanging out with engineers. And after school, I just never wanted to do finance. I always wanted to start my own business. And I joined my friends in starting an agency, like a mechanical electrical engineering agency called Pokebore, which is RoboCop backwards. Anyhow, I sort of got two lessons out of that. The first lesson was it's very fun to do your own business. It was very fun, I think, to work with your smart friends. But then the second thing was, I don't really know much about engineering, and so I can't really add a lot of value. And I was doing a lot of like sales and things like that. But even then, when you don't understand the technical underpinnings of something, it's quite hard to sell it great. So some other friends of mine from high school, they were starting a startup in Los Angeles, and it was a web startup. And I knew how to do front-end development, and I knew enough about product design that I wanted to go down and help. And I went with my friend Evan, who's another college buddy, and went down to LA and did a startup with them. I did also realize, I like the web. I'm quite good at it. I was working with my friend Evan, who still works with me now, and we had a great rapport, and we basically built the whole thing. And so I was able to sell early, a very good vesting schedule, and I was able to make a bunch of money. This is a long time ago now, 10 years ago now or something like that. And then I used all of that money to hire all of my favorite friends. And I started a company with them called Fictive Kin, which just means people who are not related to you by blood, but they're basically family. So these are people who I've known for a very long time. And so that's ultimately how I got here. I think I maybe went too far back, to be honest. But that's how I came with the starting of the company, and then how the company unfolded is like a totally different thing, because it's 8 years old now, the company.
And maybe we'll unearth some of that. So I wanted to get into the topic of how we interact with the web and online content and stuff like that. And to do that, I want to explore some of Fictive Kin's projects.
Sure.
So I'm really interested in the redesign of Rookie that you all did.
Yeah.
So just tell me a little bit about that.
We used to run a conference called Brooklyn Beta, and Tavi spoke at our conference, and we developed a relationship with her and with Lauren Redding, who's over there also. We're very open about why we've done what we've done, and I think that's like a very healthy thing. And I love the purpose of Rookie. I also loved the site. I think that they were doing tons of amazing content, and it's impressive how far they got with how little. I mean, they had a non-responsive site for a market that is teenage girls, and it was like people were dying for it. They love it. But we met them through the conference. They needed a site, and we really wanted to help them with it. They didn't have any money, so we talked to MailChimp to design it with them. And the challenge was, especially around then, everything was like very medium-y, medium.com, and everything looked like that. And I think even they had a temptation to look like that. And maybe like almost like grow up a little bit. They didn't want to grow. Explicitly, that was the goal. It's not rookies growing up. So the fun part for that project, or one of the most fun parts, was keeping this very cool, funky aesthetic while at the same time making it more modern. So I think we did a really good job. We worked with the team, and like they helped, and it was very collaborative. And I think we ended up with something that was good. Like the actual results were good. Like page views doubled the next day, and it's a very outspoken, super sharp community. And I was very nervous about launching a redesign of their beloved site, but it was all positive.
So in trying to keep this very fun, unique aesthetic that Rookie has, what were some of the constraints on the design?
Well, there were some constraints. There were some business goals. Those aren't that fun. But a business goal was very explicitly increase page views, because they were changing their advertising model, and they had an advertising partner before. But we did a survey of, I think, about 1,500 of their readers, all filled in this type form. And we got basically what they liked and what they wish existed. And so we built to that. So there were some constraints, and sometimes we had to go away. So there was 3 articles a day was the default, and that was a requirement to us that we needed to move away from that. But other than that, like people loved the changing backgrounds all the time. They loved the illustrative style. Basically, we got a ton of awesome feedback from them, and we just did what they asked. You don't usually get to start with like, here's an existing beautiful thing. We get to preserve it. Here's a very open, awesome community. They're telling us what they want. All we have to do is not fuck it up.
I want to get into a piece that you wrote several years ago in which you said that we were on the cusp of an overhaul in the way in which we interact with online content. And in that piece, you described the concepts of content shifting and content liberation. Mm-hmm. And so briefly, what are those concepts about?
The content shifting one, you could think of like Pocket, right? Like you just sort of move it over. Whereas I think content liberation is more like what Pinterest does. It sort of completely removes it from its context. It essentially hides that context and gives it a new life. So it's hard to trace back the origin story of a particular piece of content, whereas shifting, you can really easily know where it came from, but you're moving that experience. And shifting has all kinds of really interesting implications, because most media publications, they're not really caring about your reading experience. I think everybody's experienced like the assault of all the pop-ups, et cetera, et cetera. So if you just shift those letters over to another place, you can read it great. You're like, I just wanted to read those words. Thank you for writing them, which isn't very collaborative between the reader and the publisher, but that's what I think people use these things for.
We talked about how Rookie has this very strong aesthetic of their own, and the community loves that, and it's something that you wanted to preserve. So I'm interested how those two concepts relate to that project.
In both cases, it involves a shift in thinking about what is the center of gravity for an item. In the case of Rookie, I think they have something very special, which is different. Most apps out there are content-driven apps. If you want to go see square photos, you go to Instagram. Like the content is there, and you bring the people to the content. Whereas Rookie, they have the community, and that's the center of gravity. The publication's there, but really it's a very powerful community. Like that is a deep network of people, and you could bring them their own little mini Pinterest. You could bring them their own little mini, Instagram. You could bring them anything. You just bring the functionality to them. And that article was called Orbital Content, and I believe that, I still believe it, that your content should revolve around you, and you give that to whoever you want. Like if you had been using Snapchat for a while and you just decided you want to go over to Instagram and bring all that stuff with you, you should have been able to go, here you go. If I want to leave Bank of America and go to Wells Fargo, I can move my money and come over here. Whereas my content, it's all very blurred. It's mine, I made it, but you kind of own it, and maybe we kind of have a shared ownership, and it's a really peculiar arrangement, and you can kind of lock it down. So those two, I think, are related in that way, and I like those kinds of things.
So there's the aspect of these concepts that affects the way that we experience consuming information, like in the case of a really cluttered news site, you're taking the letters and reading them in a more sane, calm environment. But also the aspect of how we interact with our own content and like how that ownership is negotiated.
You own yourself. You own your community. This to me is like the power of the internet, which we just totally are like, we don't really care about the internet. Like we're just going to create little mini internets elsewhere. And so I think that anything that empowers an individual or a small group of purpose-driven individuals, even if that purpose is just taking naps and having pizza, like I'm into those kinds of things.
I'm into those things as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would also like to explore like moving beyond the current state. How do you think this manifests in the future? Or where do you see that going?
It's kind of like saying, how do we get people to floss? How do we get people to save or put money into their retirement? People just don't like to do what's ultimately good for them in the long run when there's an easier option. We talk about it at our company like actual closeness versus sort of generic connectivity. And I think that people are very connected, and that opens up all kinds of opportunity for closeness, but it doesn't get generated. So I think if we could figure out a way to create real intimacy, then that would be something. I can only identify the problem. Like here, I can give you another way to think about the problem. So there's a study, they talk about rats, and they would give rats Diet Coke. Some rats get the Diet Coke, some rats get regular Coke. And the Diet Coke rats get like way fatter and shit because their body perceives that they were given sugar. So it does all these things, but it didn't get sugar. It didn't get what it thought it got. So then later on, it goes double down for sugar. So they were tricking their body into believing they got sugar. Da, da, da. So I think that something like a typical social network gives you the Diet Coke equivalent of a friendship. A real friendship is on a road trip and you're out and you're doing something, and it doesn't even need to be that idyllic. It could just be a drink after work at the end of the day. That is a real bond, and that is like the regular Coke. You got your sugar, you don't need anymore. The other ones are like false sustenance that I think makes people binge or crave for it, but there's no way to binge friendship. I can't go to you and make you be my friend.
So theoretically speaking, from a design perspective, like what kinds of things can designers do to try and like build this genuine relationship?
That's a great question. You can do a couple things. So one, I think that if you err on the side of creating tools, utilities, you're going to be in a good spot. You can count on it because you can also trick yourself. A way that you can't trick yourself is a tool. So like Google Maps, we'll plug Google. Google Maps is a tool. Google Maps isn't saying like, hey, how did you like, do you want to like rate your cab ride here? It's like, no, thank you for getting me here on time, Google Maps, and I don't need to talk to you anymore. I'll talk to you later. And I think those things, they pop up, they can bring us together, and they can be valuable utilities. So like we think about timeless tools. So things that have been around forever, calendars, lists, maps, things like that. Those are things that can be very actually quite personal. They can be social, they can be fun. But if you just treat those things as like your foundation, you're not inventing a new need. Like if you're inventing a new need, I think maybe you're part of the problem. If you're bringing people together, like there's something kind of cool there. Like bring them together, do something nice. Like I don't want a futon anymore. Thanks, Craigslist. I don't have a futon anymore. So I don't know, things like that. I think designing tools is awesome. And I guess if you put a point system in, then I think you're probably also creating a problem. So me sharing a photo, I share a photo and I just like, this is my photo, I don't care, whatever. But like if there are people you share a photo, it doesn't get enough likes, you take the photo down. You thought that was a cool photo to share. You wanted to share the photo, but you didn't really want to share the photo. You wanted to collect little hearts. That says something about the tool. It's not a photo sharing tool. It's a heart collecting tool, which is a little casino that you put in your pocket and you carry it around. It's no good.
I'm also interested in a piece you wrote about the fact that it's an important time for design, or it's design's time. Like you wrote about how design is in the spotlight, all eyes are on design.
Yeah.
It's finally people are recognizing it as like a very integrated piece of a product. But you also said something that really stood out to me in that piece, which is you worry that design is being set up to fail. What do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is I'm a business guy. I have an MBA. But when I ran Brooklyn Beta, it's designers and developers. We're bringing designers and developers together. I co-ran it with the guy named Chris Shiflett. The developers all thought, oh, Cameron's a designer, because I know plenty about design. And then the designers all thought, oh, Cameron's a developer. It's like they both knew I knew a lot, but I wasn't quite right. And I was like, I got you. I'm right in the middle here. I'm a business guy. And so I hang out with a lot of business type people. I hear business type chatter, and I saw a lot of attention on design. And it became something that VCs were talking about, business leaders, you got to have it. You got to get yourself some design, get a guy who looks like Yves Behar, bring him in, have him put some sticky notes up and all that kind of stuff. I can tell you designer after designer after designer who would be designer number one at a startup that really made a lot of its headway early on because of design. And that person maybe got like 0.2% of the company that then got sold for $30 million. It's like, you did it. And somebody else made $30 million. I want you to at least make $1 million. That would be nice. And so I always felt like designers were taken advantage of and in a way that engineers weren't. Because engineers had more examples. They had like Paul Graham. Engineers have kind of like an attitude about not getting taken advantage of. And designers, maybe, I don't know what the constitutional difference is. They sort of were more going with the flow. So I thought, here's a moment for you to like go for it. But I think what happened more is because design is more accessible than engineering, I can't go pretend to set up a server. Like I just didn't set up a server. Because of that, I think business people just grabbed design. I think business people just call themselves designers all the time. And they go around and you'll see like some design thought leaders, it's like, show me your coolest design. And they're like, oh, back in the, it's like, what? You're not a designer, but you're just saying it. And now you're leading designers. And of course, because you're a business person, you're wildly opinionated and you think that your way is right. And so now you're designing like shitty stuff. So I don't actually think it worked. Design, the word, is now everywhere. Good job, the word design. But designers, the community, I don't think they're getting much from it. And I don't think that those of us on the receiving end of designed products are also getting much from it because those people didn't actually get to the position that they want.
The setting up to fail that you mentioned, you think happened?
I believe that happened, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Just in terms of the upper bounds of where designers could be in the organizational chart and the influence that they could have had on society. Mills Baker, he has an article, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something about designers' seat at the table or something like that. That's the easiest read to make the point. And that was only like 2 years after the thing I wrote. And I think he makes the point excellently. I wish I could remake it, but just read it. It's great.
So essentially, there's this idea that design is important, but yet the actual recognition that whether you acknowledge it or not, design is foundational and present everywhere has not been made.
Well, design is objectively important, but what design has not been internalized. So people just say, and in that Mills Baker article, he uses path as an example. And like, I feel like what business people took away from it is like, if you make the coolest button that's an ad, you hit a button and circles fly everywhere, and it's like, that's design, like decoration, right? This is very, I'm going right into what all designers say all the time, but it's like, design is not decoration, it's foundation. It's not the molding on the building, it's the underlying architecture. Like, it's the blueprints down, that's when you're really doing design, and that is from the beginning. You can't go to a building, I can't change the underlying structure of this Google Office. This is it. If I want to do that, I have to rip it down and put it up, or I put up something new somewhere else. And so that kind of design is it's just not understood.
Is there a way that practicing designers can subvert this and inject the understanding of design into the kind of like framework where designers are co-founders and things like that?
I think actually making an alternate thing. And there's all of these blind spots. It's like every time somebody decides to make a startup or make a new product, they go look in the same lame-ass town in Northern California, Palo Alto. I lived there. It's not cool. And they go and they figured it out. Let's copy that. If you go to Berlin, they're copying Silicon Valley. Like electronic music in Berlin and electronic music in Detroit, these are different. They have their own movements. Why is it that there's not a cool set of Baltimore startups? And that could just mean startups for Baltimore, or like something where when you open the app and you're from Baltimore, but you're in San Diego or something, and you go, I bet somebody from Baltimore made this. Why doesn't it ever sound like somewhere else? And I think it's cool. If you go small, then I think you got a shot. Like if you're going for $1 million business instead of $1 billion business, maybe designers just make 1,000 $1 million businesses instead of trying to make the next $1 billion business. Maybe that could do it. But you have to go small, strategic, and don't look at any examples. That's what a designer is supposed to be able to do. Break it down to its component parts, come up with a plan, and put it together the way that's best suited for the job. I think that would probably do something.
So I want to ask a more general question about how your work or process has changed over time and where you see it going in the future.
Well, we get better, so that's interesting because product design is very difficult, and it is a hard thing to learn because you can't learn it unless you design a product from scratch, launch that product, and then ideally try to change it and make it better. So that's like trying to get good at playing the guitar by playing one C chord a month. It just takes for freaking ever to get good. So it's neat every time we come at it fresh that we get better and get a little bit wiser about it. But the process itself, I don't think that there's a way to change the process of making a product. It starts with some kind of discovery, some kind of research or planning, period, like measure twice, cut once, that kind of deal. Come up with a plan, make the simplest version of that plan, and then put that into people's hands as quickly as possible, and then make it better. I will say that there's a bunch of stuff that's changed environmentally. We made an app a long time ago called Gimme Bar. We made this to-do list app called To Do. When we put To Do out there, people were like, oh, cool, a new app. And it didn't matter that it was buggy. There was like news that there's this new app. Let's try this new app out today. That's our Tuesday activity. Now, nobody wants it. They don't want your fucking app at all. So you really can't just go, like, I think that there's like a good startup mantra of like, fail fast, or you put it out there really quickly and MVP and then you iterate or whatever. But I think that if you MVP these days, you didn't really give your idea a chance. You have to get somewhere further. Like there's not that many new things on your phone or my phone or anybody's phone. So I feel like the things that have changed are all around, which is environmental, which is basically you have to show up ready to roll if you want to have something cool. We have a lot of internal projects that are at various degrees of completion that 5 years ago, I would have put them out no problem. But now I just test them with 50 trusted friends who understand what we're doing and have a little patience. And like, it's like, if this isn't fun for us 50, then we're not going to tell another soul. Once it's fun for us 50, let's see if 500 people find it fun. But we'll never like launch it because you only get to that once.
And so you kind of determine its staying power beyond a week during that process.
Yeah, like for like months. It's like, I could show you some stuff in my pocket right now that I'm like, man, I really want to like this thing, but we totally haven't figured it out. Like, I don't like it that much. It's only okay. So what am I going to go out there and tell the world, like, hey, we made an okay app? Like, nobody wants that. So I got to spend much more time, like, trying to figure it out. And we keep it really lo-fi. Like, we have learned some stuff. So the first one is, we do this with clients. It's an exercise. So clients will very typically show up with a long feature set. And while sure, I could get a ton of money if I make your whole feature set, like it's not going to work and you're going to hate me at the end and that's no fun. So what we say to them is take all your features and pull a feature out. And if what you have left is still a product, then that is not going first. So if we go to Twitter, you go to Discover, you pop that guy out and you look at it and you're like, is this still a product? Yes, Discover is not core. Okay, what about these trending tags over here? If we pull them out, is this still a product? Yes, this is not core. So even though you might argue that it's better or worse or whatever, it's not core. So the only thing that's really core on Twitter is writing a tweet, submitting a tweet, reading some tweets. So we would do that first as quickly as possible. And even before that, we have a jokey thing. The very first thing we always make is just called a Seinfeld, which is an app that does nothing. You can sign up, you can make an account, you can log in, log out. You literally can't do a goddamn thing. And so it's like, okay, cool, done. That's check one. Check two is that core app that I described, and then we can get more strategic about how we kind of sweeten the pot with other features and stuff like that. But features tend to have to fight their way in instead of us building them and taking them out.
Has this process kind of developed out of the transition from every Tuesday there's a hot new app to like nobody cares about your app?
I actually think it probably developed out of client work because, you know, in the early days we would do client projects for people where maybe it's an individual. They did like a friends and family round. Maybe they got like $80,000 together. And when somebody's sitting next to you and they're telling you that like their mom went into their savings to get like money to give you, you take on that burden a little bit. And so you try to get as clever as possible about how to build something. So it's like, okay, let's make the simplest thing. And by doing the Seinfeld, we all now have accounts. So anything new, we're all already trying it. There's no new feature that we're not already trying. Then we look at the core, and at any point, you could say, you know what, I don't think we have something. So it's kind of more being clever about how you spend money. You don't assume that you understand at the beginning what the product is. So if you make a big list, oh, this is what it is, and then you make all that, now you have to pull stuff out and put new stuff in. At every step along the way, you assume, I probably don't know, but it does need accounts. Okay, cool, I was right, it needs accounts, I'm in here. Okay, now I can write tweets. It's like, oh, I knew I was gonna need to read tweets. It's like, okay, cool, now I can read tweets. And at every point you can say, cool, it still feels like we're on the path. We used to get these beautiful design comps. I'm like, oh yeah, build that. It's like, you know, think of it like dating, right? Oh, this person's gorgeous. And then you hang out with them for a few times and you're like, inside of them is shit. And like you have the same thing with an interface. It's like, this looks beautiful. Like a dribble interface looks beautiful. Underneath it is nothing, you know? And so you sort of say to yourself, this product needs to win as the product. So it did change. We do also do like on our own work. We do not make it look good. We do not brand it. We make what we call a blueprint. And it's like all Helvetica, it's all blue, and it has to land on its own merits, its own content, things like that.
I was going to follow up about the blueprint concept.
Yeah.
How do you like tame the impulse of a designer?
Some designers like to do the product side a lot, and some designers like to do the visual side a lot, and then I don't let the visual people see it usually. You can feel it in the air, though. There is a point at which it's kind of working, but actually the lack of appearance, it's like, also dating, you're an amazing person, let's say we're on a date, and then you show up, but you're like, you didn't shower or something like that. At a certain point, your product is looking at you, and you're like, you're kind of a slob, and I can't even look at you like objectively, so let's make you a little bit better, and then so you can sort of like ladle it in little by little in that way. I shouldn't say I don't let them see it. They're all in the office. They can see it. They're full-grown adults. But ideally, ideally they agree. I don't know. We'd have to ask them. But I think that the people who are more visually inclined agree with the process. And then once they get it, it's like they can jump in and it's a lot of fun.
Got it. Cool. Well, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, sure.
Keep an eye on design.google/podcast so you don't miss our next episode. Guest host Amber Bravo speaks with architecture critic and author Alexandra Lang about her upcoming book, The Design of Childhood. They examine how the design of the built environment influences childhood development, the origin and evolution of the building block, and the magic of a cardboard box. You can subscribe to Design Notes on Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can stay up to date with Google Design by getting our quarterly newsletter at design.google/subscribe. Until next time.